Listen, kid, this server ain't big enough for the two of us. Why don't we settle this with our irons?
Hate that has to come to this, my old friend. But what you didn't consider is that I might be locked in.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Sharpshooter, an archer archetype that's based around range and dealing brutal hits. Or, as I like to refer it as, the only archetype that canonically keeps that strap on him. Sharpshooter's main gimmick focuses around one of its abilities called Focus. When damaging an enemy 5+ blocks away, it will grant you 1 focus stack per second. Every focus stack increases your overall damage by plus 15%. But if you miss one of your shots, you will lose 50% of your focus stacks. Sharpshooter also heavily changes some of Archer's base attacks. Firstly, your main attack will be unaffected by gravity and also home towards enemies. Secondly, Arrow Storm becomes Phantom Ray, a condensed single beam attack that hits 10 times per second. It is later upgraded by an ability called Decimator. Phantom Ray increases its damage by 15% every time you do not miss with it. And lastly, Arrow Bomb gets slightly changed with 2 abilities. First one being Shocking Bomb, which makes Arrow Bomb unaffected by gravity, and the second one being Coursing Restraints, which makes Bomb Arrow give enemies a debuff of negative 15% resistance bonus, making them take a whole lot more damage. Later down the ability tree, we get more use cases for Focus. First one being Twain's Arc. If you have 2+ focus, holding shift will charge up a destructive long-range beam. This ability in particular has a lot of use cases for much more niche builds. And secondly, we have Crepuscular Ray. If you have 5+ focus and cast Phantom Ray mid-air, you'll begin to levitate in the air and fire 20 homing shots per second. The duration of this is dependent on how many focus stacks you have. The gameplay loop for Sharpshooter is pretty simple. All you have to do is build up focus stacks using Phantom Ray. Then, once you have a sufficient amount for Crepuscular Ray, what you want to do is use Arrow Bomb to apply the negative resistance buff, and then use Crepuscular Ray for maximum damage. And then after that, just rinse and repeat. The aspects that I recommend using are Laser Precision, the Poltergeist, Extreme Current, Further Horizons, and Battlement Fortification. But now, you're probably thinking, what do we use with this archetype? How can I make the Second Amendment the most fun? Well, let me introduce you to this little item called... Psst, over here. Divzer, a level 97 Thunder Mythic bow that is the pure definition of glass cannon. Taking a closer look at the stats, it has incredibly high base damage with some great mana sustain in the form of Mana Steal, at the cost of having some beautifully written stats such as negative 550 agility and negative 73 defense. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, this is the ultimate try not to get hit challenge. Since we're using Divzer, we're going to have to make a couple changes to our gameplay loop. Firstly, and most importantly, in between spells, always cast Arrow Shield. You want to have an almost 100% uptime on Arrow Shield so that whenever you get hit, you're always prepared for it. This is the only way you can get any sort of damage reduction on Divzer. This is specifically why we're using the Aspect Battlement Fortification. Secondly, you want to use your main attack as much as possible to regain all of your mana. As we saw in the stats, Divzer has a huge amount of Mana Steal. We'll be using an item that gives us a bunch of negative tier attack speed so that we get the most amount of Mana Steal per melee hit. The item in question will be Nycthemeron. If you're curious about the rest of the build, I'll have it posted in the description. And lastly, you want to keep your distance as much as possible. Sharpshooter has a lot of range and you want to take full advantage of that so that you're not close to the enemy and taking damage. Now, with that all out of the way, let's have a look at the damage. These are the numbers you should expect with a full Crepuscular Ray with Coursing Restraints. And overall, that's pretty much all you need to know about using Divzer on Sharpshooter. I'm never usually a huge fan of using glass cannon builds, however I think in this case it's actually kind of fun, mainly just because you're not actually being close to the enemy.